Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, today we are back working over on our Thompson surface grinder. This has been a kind of a long-term project going on here in the shop, and we've got it pretty much ready to go. I just need to get the chuck, the magnetic chuck mounted on here and ground in and everything so that we can actually start using this. And yes, I have a need for this coming up, so it's kind of worked its way back up to the priority list that needs to get done, which seems to be the way things work around here. I got so many projects going on and so many things going on that whatever kind of becomes what I need next kind of becomes the next thing on the list. So we're going to try to get this thing knocked out today. So here's the game plan. When I got this machine, we took the magnetic chuck off. There's a big magnetic chuck that goes on here. Basically is powered by DC power, direct current power. When you energize that, it energizes that chuck. And if you put anything that is magnetic or a ferrous material on there, it will stick to that magnet. And that magnet is what's going to hold the work while it's being ground on the surface grinder. So we need to get the chuck that I've got. I've got a big chuck that came with this, but it needs to be tuned up and fine-tuned. And basically, anytime you do work like we've done on this machine where we've scraped ways, we've done other things. If I just put this thing up here, there's no guarantee that the top of that magnetic chuck is going to be parallel with the rest of the machine. And when you start grinding things, you might start getting tapers and so forth. Even if it's tiny, it can make a difference when you're doing precision surface grinding. So game plan, we're going to start, we've just got the regular table here. We're going to grind this into the machine. Now it should be in good shape, but again, we have gone in here and done some scraping to the ways, so it's likely that at least at a very precision level, it's not perfectly true anymore. And I can just look at it and tell it's got some rust on it, it's got some paint overspray on it and so forth. We're going to get that ground down perfectly good. Then we'll bring the chuck over here and we will grind the bottom of the chuck so that it is perfectly flat. We will mate those two surfaces together and clamp them down and then come back for a third grind and grind the top of the chuck perfectly flat on the machine in the setup so that everything is good. So we've got kind of three different steps here to do this. And if you're a surface grinder owner, sometimes it needs to be done, particularly the top of the chuck. But anytime you take the chuck off of the machine, it's generally, you just want to go ahead and freshen it up. You don't have to take a whole lot of material off. You just need to kiss it and clean it up, get a smooth grind. Usually a couple of thousandths of an inch is all that is necessary unless something really bad has gone on, but we need to go ahead and do that on this machine. So that's what we're going to work on. This will be the first time that I've actually ground with this machine, so I'm hoping we don't run into any kind of issues. I do need to get my coolant tank filled up and some coolant in there because we want to have some coolant while we're doing this. So I'm going to bring probably a garden hose in out here. I think that coolant tank holds about, what, 35 gallons? No, 50 gallons is what that coolant tank holds. And I don't want to bring in 10 5-gallon bucket loads, so we'll just bring a hose in here and fill her up. Let me get that going and we'll get this thing fired up and dress the stone and do our first grind, or at least my first grind with this machine. So kind of back here on the back side of the table, there is a built-in reservoir for a coolant tank. There's a cover that goes on this. And again, it holds 50 gallons of coolant. I'm going to zoom in a little bit better so you can kind of see how this is organized. And we'll go ahead and see if we can get this thing filled up and ready to go. So the table is kind of over here, and this is going to be going back and forth as you're grinding. And the table has kind of casting all the way around it. So any coolant that comes in here will kind of drain down into this bottom. And back here, there is a little spout that goes over into a trough. Again, this is moving back and forth. There's a hole here that drains down into this coolant tank. The coolant tank has 3 different compartments in it. So when the stuff comes in directly, it's going to drop down into this large tank first. And the idea here is that your heavy stuff, any metal, grit from your grinding wheels, etc., it will settle out in this area just naturally. It's just going to sink to the bottom. If you look over here, we've got a divider. There's a little cut in here. So what's going to happen is here, anything that's on the top, the fluid, the coolant that's on the top will flow over into this tank. And again, the idea is your heavy stuff's going to be trapped over here. A lot of times you're going to have some foam and stuff on the surface that will come over in this area. But then you go to a third compartment, a small compartment, and there's a divider here, but it has an opening down in the bottom. So your foam and all that kind of stuff is going to be trapped between these two tanks. And in theory, the only thing that's going to come down here is fairly clean coolant. You just got a natural kind of trapping things in these different areas. And periodically you have to come in here and clean this tank out. It's going to fill up with sediment and stuff. And when I got it, it was full of junk, and we went ahead and got it all cleaned out. Now there is a pump right here, and it is pumping out of this reservoir area right here. This is all one reservoir, but it's divided into those three areas, again, to kind of help clean the fluid. So before I get started, I do have some just trash and stuff in here from when we've been restoring the machine. I'm going to get my shop vac, clean that out real good so that we're starting out clean. And like I said, I'm going to go ahead and get this thing filled up with some water, and then I'll put a water-soluble oil in here that we'll use as the coolant mix. All right, I got a garden hose in here, and we are filling things up. Now it's going to fill this front reservoir up first because no water's going to go over here until it gets to this level. Then it's going to fill up the other two. But like I said earlier, this holds about 50 gallons total. We'll go ahead and get some water in here, and then we'll add our oil to it, our soluble oil to it, to make a coolant solution. All right, we're about to go over the falls here. It is reaching the point there where it's going to go over that little ledge there in the back. There she goes. So now we're going to be filling up the back two containers. And then, like I said, this one's open in the bottom over here, so it's coming all the way across, and it'll just seek level going through there. All right, we'll let this thing finish filling up, and we'll get our oil in here. I know someone's going to ask what coolant fluid that I use, and this is what I've been using. This is made by Metalworking Fluids. It's called Trim E206. It's a long-life emulsion. It's supposed to last for a really long time. I know back 35 years ago when I worked in the machine shop, a lot of times these coolants would kind of get sour after a while, and you'd have to dump them out and throw them away. This stuff here will last a really long time before you have to change it out. And I probably need to order some more. I've used part of this, and looking at how much needs to go into 50 gallons, I'm going to have to get some more. But I'm going to go ahead and pour what I've got in there, and that'll get me started until I can get some more of this stuff in. And if I remember right, I actually was able to order this off of Amazon last time. I'm sure there's other places you can get it from as well. But anyway, that's what I'm using. And that coolant tank back there is probably as clean as it has been in a long time, and probably as clean as it will ever be as long as I have it in my shop. But we're going to go ahead and just pour this in here, and you can see when you pour it in, it'll kind of turn to a milky white or bluish color as it mixes in, and it just kind of provides a nice coolant to work with. Once that pump starts pumping back there and it starts moving around, it's going to get itself mixed up. I'm not too worried about that, but we'll go ahead and just pour all that in there. Get all the goodie out of that jug. I'm going to do that again. All right, I think we're about ready to get started here. First thing I need to do is lower my head down here closer to the bottom, and we also need to get this wheel dressed. It has been taken off and put on, and it needs to be trued up to the spindle. So let me go ahead and start by dropping the head down. I got my head all the way down now. It's not all the way down. We're not quite touching, but we got it down. And I went ahead and fired it up and let the bearings be warming up a little bit. We've got the spindle spinning. We've got the table moving back and forth, kind of slow, but you know, that's kind of where I'll probably want to do my grinding at. Just kind of warming the machine up right now. I got my table on the full stroke here. First thing I need to do is to dress this wheel. Fortunately, this machine has a built-in wheel dresser. right up here, and we're going to go ahead and get that done, and then we can start grinding. So the way this wheel dresser works is that we've got a diamond on this piece here. I can move it in and out by just turning this handle up here, and there's a little micrometer stop up there to kind of keep track of how far you move it in. I'm going to move this diamond in until it just starts to touch, and I can kind of see it spark as well as hear it. There it goes right there. And I've got my head right now set in manual mode where I can just kind of crank the wheel back and forth across that diamond. And I can tell just listening to it that it's not making full contact all the way around right now, but that's fine. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to dial in. Oh, that was what, about 5 or 6 thousandths. We're going to come back across, making a heavier cut, but still, I hear that skip in there. That's where I had that wheel off. It not making full contact. We want to get it round all the way around. So we'll go back across again. Much better. Still hear just a little bit of skip in there. I can see it kind of in the wheel too there. We'll take another 5 thousandths. We'll come back across. I'm just going to keep doing this until I get that wheel dressed and running true. You want to run these wheels kind of fast. You don't want to go real slow. You want to kind of have a little bit of a roughness in there. And I think we're about there. I'm going to do one more pass just to be on the safe side. So I think we got a good grind. All right, I'm going to back that wheel off now, or the diamond off. We've got a good grind on there. Now I want to put this in automatic mode where my head's going to be moving across by itself. And I think we're about ready to kind of do our down feed here and start making some cuts. I've got my head set up where it's kind of automatically moving over each pass just a little bit. I got my speed about right. So we're going to just start very slowly bringing our wheel down until we just start to touch off. So my head has got a little bit of stiction in it. It's taking a lot heavier cut than I really want to here, but I think we're going to be okay. I'm probably going to have to redress my wheel here in a little bit, but we're going to just let it kind of do this rough cut. This is not what I wanted to do, but this head was sticking coming down. I'm, again, operating at the very bottom end of this range. But the machine will do it. I mean, this machine's more than powerful to make that cut that it's doing. I'm just going to kind of let it go a couple of times here until it kind of sparks itself out. And then we'll come in there and kind of dress that up a little bit. I don't think it would do this at a little bit higher setting. It's just, it was a little sticky down low. Normally I have a splash guard right here. I've got it off so you guys can kind of see what's going on since we're so low. Making a little bit of a mess on the floor, but normally it wouldn't do that. Good news is the grind looks excellent. Particularly for having made such a rough cut there on that first pass. I'm just going to let this thing run for a while until it kind of sparks itself out. Like I said, I don't need to take any more down. I've gone down as far as I need to go. I was planning on making lighter passes than that. You can see the grime going in there. Like I said, I'm very happy with the finish there though. That looks good, but we're going to let this thing spark out. By sparking out, I'm just going to basically just let it run at that same level until it kind of quits sparking. Then I might feed in about a half a thou or something and clean it up just a little bit more, but I'm going for a good, nice flat surface here. All right, I'm real happy with how this is looking. We've about sparked out. I'm gonna probably just let it run a little bit more. I did down feed just about a half a thou there, just to kind of help clean up anything that might be on the surface. And we're just gonna let it run for a little while, but I think it's good right now, but I'm just gonna let it spark out a little bit more. I really want to get a really nice flat finish on this. Well, for my very first grind with this machine, I'm pretty happy with those results. That's a nice looking finish. We should be able to work off of that very well. So next step is for me to get the mag chuck up on here. And I'm actually going to flip it upside down. I'm going to grind the bottom of that, which will mate to this surface once we put it all together. So next step, we'll get that up here. I'm going to get my engine hoist out to lift that thing up and get her setting on there. Got my magnetic chuck here over on engine hoist and bringing it into this machine, hopefully to get this thing on here. It needs to make a 180. Let's back it back up just a little bit. There we go. I need for it to go in kind of like this. And we're close right there. We can kind of ease that down. All right, it's down. I'm going to have to manhandle it into position, but we at least got it up here on the table, and it is upside down right now. Got the bottom up and a lot of rust on here. This was what was bolted down to the table before. Let's see if I can kind of, yeah. I'm going to kind of position this on here roughly, get it somewhat squared up. That's actually pretty good right there. And I think I'm just going to go ahead and just clamp this down using the same clamping hardware that we would normally use. And then we can come in here and surface grind the bottom of the chuck that will actually mount on the face we just ground. All right, guys, we're getting ready to start grinding again. I got my magnetic chuck bolted down to the table here, and we are lowering our wheel down very slowly. I want to just kind of barely touch off on this. I'm getting real close to it. Hopefully we're not going to drop like we did before. We're more in the range of where this thing is used to operating at now. Now we're barely touching right there. Just barely, yep. I'm gonna let it just work its way across one time there, since we're just barely touching off, and then we're gonna start doing more controllable down feeds this time. Got a lot of rust and scale on the bottom of this chuck, and I'm noticing that it is kind of hitting a little bit heavier in one area than the other. This corner down here is hitting a lot more heavier than it is in other places, but that's all right. We're taking the, we're going to get it trued up to the machine. That's what we're after here. So I'm going to let it kind of finish here, and then we're going to probably give it a little bit more of a down feed. I'll let it kind of cut back across there one time. And give it a little bit more of a down feed. not really touching over back there in this back part yet. Maybe just barely. I'm going to let it go one more cycle here, and we're going to give it a little bit more of a down feed. So this is where we ended up on the grind on the bottom of this. And again, there's a little bit of a pattern in there. I mean, it's noticeable to the eye. Can't really feel it. I doubt you could pick it up with a micrometer or anything, or an indicator. And like I mentioned before, we got some pitting in here from where some rust was just in over the grooves, and you can get some air in there. I'm not going to try to grind all that out. Some of that's 30, 40 thousandths deep. I just don't want to take that much metal off of this. It's just not worth it. I got a nice flat surface that should mate up against the other flat surface that we got in there. And that's the next step, is I need to pull this off, get it flipped over, and get it mounted where it's going to be. And then one more round of grinding to grind the top. And that's the surface that I'm really more particular about. Although I imagine we're going to end up getting a surface on it similar to this. And I think to fix that problem would require changing out wheels, and I just don't have another wheel to change out to. So we're just going to make do with what we got. All right, let me get the chuck flipped over and we'll get back to work here. All right, I got the chuck pulled off again, and I do want to take just a minute here and just run some stones over this. I noticed whenever I pick that chuck up to get it off of here that I got a couple of little scratches in the surface, nothing major, just from it dragging across there. So if I hit this with a stone, I just make sure that I knock down any high points on there, and I got a nice flat surface to clamp down on. So you can feel in this stone when you get it knocked down, and we're there now, so I'm good there. And I will also stone the bottom of the chuck whenever I get it over here kind of suspended before I drop it on there, just again to make sure that we don't have any burrs or anything in place. So let me get the table over here with the engine hoist, and we'll get it put in place. All right, we've got the chuck mounted over here, or hanging from the engine hoist. And I know somebody is going to ask, why am I using the engine hoist and not the gantry crane for this? And the simple answer is that the gantry crane is in a different part of the shop right now, and it's going to be a lot of work to get it over here, and for no more than what I need it for, this engine hoist will suffice just fine. I'm just taking a minute here to stone that bottom that we just ground, and I didn't feel any burrs on it. Shouldn't have it. Hasn't been on anything but wood. And we're going to go ahead and try to get this over here in place. Tell you what I've decided to do. I remember a little trick I saw my friend Cash Masters up at Kinetic, who does my grinding on machinery and stuff like that. He runs a big grinding shop up there in Milwaukee area. And when he puts chucks down on his big surface grinders, he puts some anti-seize between them just to kind of keep any fluid and stuff from getting in there. I've got some spray-on copper anti-seize here, and I'm going to spray this down with that first, and then clamp it down. I think that'll, just kind of help keep the coolant from between those two surfaces, and hopefully keep the rust from building up under there. So I'm going to go ahead and just pull that out of the way for a minute and put this on there. This is happens to be made by CRC. We're going to just put some on here. I'll make sure I get good coverage all the way around. I think we got it there. Maybe just a little bit more back there on the, I think we're good. All right, I'm gonna go ahead now and put that table in there, and we'll clamp her down. Trying to get this as close as I can to where it's gonna end up at. We're really close right there. All right. All right, we are bolted down. I've got my wheel dressed, got the machine running, and we're ready to start grinding here. I'm going to lower my wheel down until we just barely touch off again. I'm getting around real close. I just want to barely touch off. All right, there we go. Get a little more coolant going here. Go ahead and get my splash guard back in place here. And we'll just work our way until we're making good contact. I don't think it's going to take a whole lot to do this. Although there are some apprentice marks in this chuck where the wheel had gotten into it previously. I don't know if we're going to try to grind those completely out or not. We'll just kind of play it by ear. I have pretty well got the table cleaned up, except for, again, these kind of apprentice marks where the wheel got lowered down into the table previously, before I owned this machine. Yeah, I've only taken about 5 thousandths total, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and, I don't know if I'll grind them completely out, but I'm going to try to grind them out a little bit more than what they are. Because again, they're below the surface of the table, it's not really hurting anything unless you got a little tiny part that's only making contact in that area. Usually you're going to be bridging over that area, so it's not that big of a deal. So anyway, we're gonna take it down a little bit more though. Well, guys, I ended up taking it on down and getting all the witness marks or the apprentice marks or whatever out from where the wheel had been in. Ended up taking about 25 thou. Have to take off the surface. I really wasn't wanting to take that. It really cleaned up at about 5 thousandths except for those little areas. And I've just been letting this wheel run back and forth now for a while, sparking out without moving it down at all. And I've got a really nice grind on it and just about done. I'm gonna probably let it come back across one more time and we're just gonna call it good. But I feel like we're in a good place here and having a really nice finish on this chuck, a good starting point. So we're gonna let that finish sparking out and I'll be back. Here we go. We got this grind all finished up and I'm very happy with the results. Again, you can see a little bit of a pattern in there. I really feel like the wheel we're using on this one just isn't really the right wheel for this material. It did a much nicer job on the cast iron. But I think, again, that's just the wheel that we're using. No big deal. This is much better than the grind that was on before we started here, even underneath all the imperfections and stuff that was in it. But I'm real happy with how this turned out. So with the table being ground out, we're just about ready to start using this for real work. The last step I need to do is I need to get the electronics for the magnetic chuck itself wired up. And I got to just get all that stuff put together. So once we can do that, we can actually turn the chuck on and actually use it as a magnetic chuck. Right now, it's just a block of metal sitting up on here. There's no controls to it. So I've got all that stuff. I just got to take the time to get it wired up. And anyway, once we do that, after that, and we'll probably do a video on this, I'm going to come in here and do a block test on this where basically you'll take, I think it's 5 different blocks of metal and you put them on here in different places and you grind them all out on both sides and then you take them to your surface plate and measure them to make sure that you're getting a uniform, height throughout the whole chuck. This is a really big area. So, we wanted to see how well things are tuned in, and I fully anticipate that it's going to be in good shape. The whole machine has been in pretty good shape, and with the work that we've done to it, it ought to be even better. So that's going to be coming up, but we're really close now to, like I said, having this machine ready to do some jobs on, and I've actually got a couple of jobs in the queue that we need to use this on. So that'll be coming up before too terribly long. Also probably need to do some research on grinding wheels and maybe try to source a couple of wheels. On my old grinder, I really kind of had two wheels that I really liked. One of them was a green wheel, kind of like you would use for grinding carbide or something like that. But it does a really good job grinding cast iron. And I do a lot of cast iron grinding. So I'm going to probably try to find one of those. And then also maybe try to find a wheel for doing more hardened steels. I had a one for that as well. So we'll have to get that figured out and get the right wheels for this thing so that we can use it for the type of work that I'm going to be using it on. So guys, with that, that's a wrap. As always, thanks so much for watching. Please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Those thumbs up and comments are greatly appreciated. Hit that bell icon up there for to get notifications when new videos are posted. And as always, big, huge thank you to those who have subscribed and those who support the site financially through PayPal, Patreon, etc. Enables me to take the time to shoot these videos and bring them to you. And guys, with that, we'll sign off. We'll catch you on the next video. Again, thanks for watching.